Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the New Mainstream podcast,
where we explore the impact of multicultural consumers on marketing and media.
I'm your host, Mario Carrasco, and co-founder of Think Now. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the New Mainstream podcast. I'm your host, Mario Carrasco. Today, we are joined by true industry powerhouse, Cindy Gallop. Cindy's known for her unapologetic approach to business and brand innovation, famously describing herself as the Michael Bay of business, which I love, one of the best LinkedIn taglines, for her ability to blow up things and create radical change. She's now founder, CEO of MakeLoveNotPorn, champion of diversity, inclusion, and globally recognized thought leader in the world of advertising and marketing. Cindy, honor to have you on the show.
I'm thrilled to be here, Mario.
And so you've had an incredible career. We always start talking a little bit about your career journey. I mean, you were leading major ad agencies to launching your own ventures. Could you take us a little bit back in the beginning, walk us through some key moments that have defined your path in advertising and marketing and what led you ultimately to entrepreneurship?
Sure. I'm half English, half Malaysian Chinese. I was born in the UK, but when I was 6, my parents moved to Brunei in Borneo, so I grew up in Asia. Went back to school and university in the UK, and I read English literature at Somerville College, Oxford. But that was where I fell mad in love with theatre, because Oxford has a very thriving drama scene. So I wrote, acted, directed, stage managed, decided, as you do at the age of 20, all I want to do is work in theatre the rest of my life. But I knew I wasn't good enough to be an actress or director. But at Oxford, I used to draw a lot when I was younger. And so my friends kind of pulled me into designing theatre posters for their shows. And from there, I got sucked into promoting their shows for them. And I really enjoyed doing that. So I became a publicity and marketing officer at several theatres in the UK. I did that for several years until I got completely fed up with working 24/7 and earning chicken feed, which is what the theatre is. And at the time, I was the marketing officer at the Everyman Theatre in Liverpool. And part of my job promoting the theatre was giving talks to people about it. So I gave a talk to a group of women in Liverpool. And afterwards, one of them came up to me and she said, "Young lady, you could sell a fridge to an Eskimo." And I thought, that is the universe telling me something, time to sell out to go into advertising. And so I did. And so I worked at a number of agencies in the UK, starting in London in the 80s. Ted Bates, back in the days when it still existed, J. Walter Thompson, Gold Greeny's Trot. Then in 1989, I fetched up at Bartle Bogle Hegarty, BBH, and proceeded to spend the next 16 years there. So I worked at BBH in London and went out to Singapore in 96 to help start up and run their Asia Pacific office, the first office outside London. And I'm here in New York now because I moved here 26 years ago to start up BBH's American office, which began as me in a room with a phone, starting an ad agency in the world's toughest advertising marketplace. That was a lively old ride. But I think the important thing to say about my career background, Mario, is everything in my life and career has always happened by accident. I have never consciously intentionally planned anything. My ex-boss, John Hegarty, has a wonderful mantra. John says, "Do interesting things and interesting things will happen to you." And I'm a great believer in living my life along the same lines. And I think it's also important to say that my so-called successful advertising career was entirely down to luck. I was very, very lucky. I was lucky on 2 fronts. The first is that I was lucky because I was never sexually harassed in a way that ended my career. And by the way, I was absolutely sexually harassed, but not, as is the experience of so many women in our industry, not in a way that drove retaliation that forced me out of the agency and forced me out of the industry. Our industry has hemorrhaged vast amounts of female brilliance, talent, and creativity because of sexual harassment. And the second reason I was lucky is because I can count on the fingers of one hand the number of female bosses I had in my entire advertising career. Two. I virtually always worked for men, but I was lucky enough to work for men who saw my potential before I did, wanted me to succeed, actively championed me, and gave me every opportunity to do so. And that is not the experience of most of the women in our industry. So I was very, very lucky.
That's such a good point to bring up because I'm in a, I'm in a subsegment obviously of the marketing industry and market research, and that there's not a lot of representation of women in leadership positions, and I think that's a testament to the importance of men stepping up and being advocates for women because we're losing so much talent.
And quite frankly, Mario, and I've said this for years, the single biggest business issue facing our industry today is not diversity and inclusion, it's sexual harassment.
Hmm.
Because sexual harassment manages out of our industry actively obstructs the female leadership that would make diversity, equity, and inclusion happen. That's the problem. Eradicate sexual harassment, and you are looking at a completely different industry.
That's a great point, and I mean it's a great it's a I mean I shouldn't say it's a great time to talk about it. It's way too late, but unfortunately now we're seeing a backlash against DE and I. Um, there's an opportunity to reframe the conversation, like you said, about sexual harassment.
Well, quite frankly, Mario, the reframing, especially in the context of the backlash, is very simple. It's not about bringing diversity and inclusion in. It's about kicking the sexist, misogynist, racist, homophobes, and ableists and ageists out.
I love that. I love that. How do we do that? I know that's a big question.
Well, first of all, men need to call out other men. That does not happen. So we need men to step up and call out other men for their bad behavior and for what they're doing to, you know, literally try and force women and underrepresented people out of the workplace. And we need to, and this is what I recommend to women, black people, people of color. I say, start your own industry.
Hmm.
And when I say that, what I actually mean is start your own business. But I deliberately articulate like that because when you start your own business, you can design it to work any way you want it to. You can design in the workplace culture in which you thrive, the work life balance you want to operate, the business model that is making money the way you want to make money. And when you do that, you are starting the industry we all want to live and work in. So start your own industry.
So we did that at Think Now, and it's amazing. I mean, we're a 100% Latino owned and operated company. We are majority of people. We have 70% women in leadership. Um, have offices in Latin America. Although, but an issue that's come up interestingly, and I think I know the answer to this. Another issue that's arise because of this. I've created a bubble that I love to be in, but sometimes I'm in other bubbles that are not great, and it's made me realize how bad some of these issues that you're talking about. When you create your own industry, you still have to contend with the world, with the outside world that isn't like your bubble. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's just something that I've dealt with lately, right? As you become more successful in a company, you start to get in spaces that are less and less diverse. And yeah, you have to champion this women in positions of power.
Well, I have several responses to that, Mario. The first is I'm a great believer in be your own filter. So, as you said to our listeners earlier, my LinkedIn bio is I like to blow shit up I'm Michael Bear Business. And how that came about was many years ago, I was talking to a group of potential consulting clients about my approach to consulting. And I said to them, I consult very selectively, only for clients and brands who want to change the game in their particular sector. So you come to me for radical, innovative, groundbreaking, transformative. I don't do status quo. And then I lightheartedly, off the cuff, said, I like to blow shit up. I'm Michael Bear Business. And everyone laughed. And I left the room and I thought, actually, that is a really good way of summing up what I do. And so I've used that line ever since. But I do not use that line as a bit of creativity, a bit of whimsy, a bit of fun. I use that line entirely deliberately because when I characterize what I do in that way, it attracts to me the people who want what I do, it repels the ones who don't.
Mm.
And I want to repel the ones who don't because they're a waste of time, effort, and money. So, what I recommend to people is be your own filter. Put your own values out there, make it crystal clear what you stand for. You will attract your tribe to you, and you will repel the people who do not share those values, and you want to repel them. You don't want to have anything to do with them in any way whatsoever.
It took us five years to come to that realization, to be honest with you, because I think previous to that, as a research company, we were like, we don't want to take sides. We don't want to know our personal views as founders. And then 2016 happened, and we were like, fuck that.
Yeah, exactly.
We started writing our point of view. We started publishing what we felt. We started researching things that moved the world, or not the world. I mean, but moved the industry in the way that we wanted to see. And two things happened. One, our company grew, um, and we were just happier.
Exactly. Exactly. And the second thing I would say to you, Mario, is, you know, um, the way you change the industry is, as I said, you start your own industry and then you prove that that is how you make an absolute goddamn fucking shit ton of money.
Hmm.
Because it is only when the old world order sees that happening that they will go, fuck me, we better do it like that.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And we, I think I mentioned before, um, we've expanded into Latin America. There's so much talent there. And we have developers there, and it's just helped grow our company so much. And a lot of it is just other companies just don't see the talent we see there, and we realize that that's a superpower for us, right? That
Exactly. Exactly.
we're doubling down on our roots and what we believe in. And
Mm.
yeah, you're exactly right. So talking a little bit about entrepreneurship, I mean, tell us a little bit about Make Love Not Porn. I mean, it's I think it's obviously within your ethos. I've listened to many podcasts where you're talking about it, but I would love to hear about where did that come along in your journey, and where are you at now?
Sure. So, like everything else, Make Love Not Porn was a complete and total accident because I did not set out to do what I very strangely find myself doing now. But it came about because of my direct personal experience dating younger men and realizing 17 years ago, before anybody else did, because I was experiencing it very intimately, that when we don't talk openly and honestly about sex, porn becomes sex education by default in not a good way. I'm a naturally action oriented person. I decided to do something about this. And so 16 years ago now, I put up for no money a tiny clunky website at makelovenotporn.com that in its original iteration was kind of a public service announcement, porn world versus real world. I launched at TED in 2009. The talk went viral. The entire world responded. Thousands of people wrote to me, pouring their hearts out from all around the world. And I realized I'd uncovered a huge global social issue. And
Mm,
so that was the point at which I decided to turn Make Love Not Porn into a business designed to do good and make money simultaneously. And, as I've been saying for 15, 16 years, the issue isn't porn. The issue is that we don't talk about sex in the real world. Because if we did, people would then be able to bring a real world mindset to the viewing of what is simply performative produced entertainment. And so I went, okay, my goal with Make Love Not Porn has to be to make it easier for every single person in the world to talk openly and honestly about sex. How do I do that? So I decided very simply to take every dynamic in social media and apply them to this one area of universal human experience that no other social network or platform allows in order to socialize sex. And so I turned Make Love Not Porn into what it is today, which is the world's first and only user generated, importantly 100% human curated social sex video sharing platform. So, a kind of what Facebook would be if it allowed you to openly, healthily, sexually self express, which it clearly does not. The way to think about us is if porn is the Hollywood blockbuster movie, Make Love Not Porn is the badly needed documentary. We are a unique window onto the funny, messy, loving, wonderful sex we all have in the real world. And what we're doing is we are, as I said, socializing, normalizing, and destigmatizing sex, bringing it out of the shadows into the sunlight to promote consent, communication, good sexual values and behavior. We are literally sex education through real world demonstration. And in concepting it, I foresaw the creator economy 16 years ago when I designed our revenue share business model to democratize access to income. So our members pay to subscribe, rent, and stream social sex videos. Half that revenue goes to our contributors, whom we call our Make Love Not Porn stars. And as a unique business, Make Love Not Porn has a unique capability. We have the power to change people's sexual attitudes and behavior for the better in a way that nothing else can. So, in the 12 years we've operated, we've taught countless young people that porn is not sex in the real world. Gen Z loves us. We have saved numerous marriages and relationships. That is literally how people write to us, you saved my marriage. We've inspired communications breakthroughs amongst couples. Parents are buying their teenagers subscriptions to Make Love Not Porn because they tell us, I want my kids to see what happy, healthy, loving sex relationships actually look like. And as with any disruptive technology, use cases emerge that the founder never dreamt of. So I was blown away when we began hearing from survivors of rape, sexual assault, sexual abuse. They tell us that Make Love Not Porn helped them reclaim their bodies. We help them feel able to be sexual again post trauma in a situation where porn is way too triggering. And it's not just people who watch our videos. We have several Make Love Not Porn stars who've told us being able to share themselves sexually in a completely safe and trustworthy space has helped them process and heal from sexual trauma. I mean, that's not a use case I ever envisaged when I came up with this idea. I'm obviously so happy it is. But what I didn't realize when I embarked on this was that my tiny team and I would fight a battle every single day, not even to grow Make Love Not Porn, just to keep it alive. Basically, because every piece of business infrastructure other tech startups take for granted, we can't. The small print always says no adult content. And that's all pervasive across every area of the business. I can't get funded, couldn't get banked, couldn't put payments in place, etc., etc. So I'm continuing to fight that battle. The good news is that this year we launched our first ever equity crowdfunding campaign for Make Love Not Porn. And it's our first ever because historically, like all the other infrastructure, no crowdfunding platform would accept us. But the wonderful actress Jamila Jamil is a big fan. She interviewed me on her podcast. She talks very frankly about how porn impacted her self-esteem, her relationships growing up. And so she proposed that she lead an equity crowdfunding campaign as our lead investor, brought us to WeFunder. We are targeting just over $1 million. We've just passed the 400,000 mark. And the good news is that what this is enabling us to do is to finally build the product I've had in the pipeline for 10 years, because parents and teachers have been begging me for it, which is the 0 to 18 and beyond sex education expansion, MakeLoveNotPorn.academy. So at a time when open, healthy sex ed is being blocked, censored, and deplatformed everywhere, we are building an aggregator hub for the best of the world sex education content. Again, 100% human curated, but we are opening this platform up to educators, therapists, sexual health and wellness experts, health professionals to bring together all of their great work, which will be easily searchable for children, young people, parents, teachers, everyone, by age appropriateness, cultural sensibility. We'll have Christian sex ed, Muslim sex ed, Jewish sex ed, and by personal comfort level. You can pick and choose what education is right for your family, your classroom, your school. So, listeners, if you like the sound of that, please go to wefunder.com/makelovenotporn and invest. Minimum investment is just $100. So it's eminently affordable to invest and own a tiny piece of Make Love Not Porn.
I love that, and I also recommend watching the interview that you referenced with Gina Jamil. It's amazing. And that's how I really learned about your business, and it's so needed, right? And we're in the US. I think unfortunately sex education is going the opposite way, and it makes it even more important. One of the questions as you were talking about this that came up, have you found, are there any markets, countries that are more open to what you're doing at Make Love Not Porn? Or can you share about users, or is it more US?
Sure. So, first of all, Mario, it's important to say that in the 15 years since I launched Make Love Not Porn at TED, we have had nothing but a universally positive reaction from every country worldwide. And we're a global platform. We have members of Make Love Not Porn stars from over 200 countries and territories. My only barriers have been financial, funding, business, and tech ones. And in that context, no. First of all, the global issue I'm tackling is the same in every single country. People go, oh, what about Scandinavia? Sweden, Norway, Denmark, they teach sex ed in schools. Yeah, but porn is ubiquitous worldwide. And it doesn't matter what the education is in schools. You are influenced by the only place until Make Love Not Porn where you were able to see people actually having sex. And again, that's why what we do at Make Love Not Porn is so important. Because, for example, there's a lot of talk, quite rightly, about consent. People are talking about consent, writing about consent, lots of thoughtful, nuanced, insightful think pieces about consent. Here's the problem. Nobody knows what consent actually looks like in bed. The
Mm.
only way you educate people as to what is great consensual communicative sex, good sexual values and behavior, is by watching people actually having that kind of sex. And Make Love Not Porn is the only place on the internet you can do that. And that's why it's so important that we are funded and that we exist. So we're tackling a global issue that is the same in every country. And then unfortunately, squeamishness around investing in sex is the same everywhere. Which is ridiculous because, my biggest obstacle in the conventional funding world is fear of what other people will think, which operates around sex unlike any other area. But, I have a venture that operates in the single area of universal human experience we are all most fascinated by, most engaged with, and most fucked up about. Dollar signs all over that shit.
Seriously. So what? One question that comes to mind: how is the adult entertainment industry, not Make Love No Porn, so well funded? That, I mean, you look at the technology, they're jumping on AI, VR, all that stuff, and so why is there money there and not money for what you're doing?
The answer is, Mario, that there is not money there in the way that you think. So what a lot of
Mm,
people don't understand is that the porn industry is dominated by one massive monopoly, which would never be allowed to exist in any other industry, but nobody wants to bring antitrust legislation to adult. A company
mm.
that used to be called MindGeek and rebranded itself last year as ALO owns everything. Alo owns Pornhub, YouPorn, RedTube, Sex.com, Brazzers, Men.com, etc., etc. When you operate as that big a monopoly, you have a stranglehold on the industry. And you'd also be amazed who's willing to work with you in the financial world when you operate at that scale without letting anybody know that they do. Um, the bad thing about that monopoly is the same bad thing about monopolies anywhere else. I have a ton of friends who are independent pornographers, feminist pornographers, queer pornographers. Um, ALO has a complete stranglehold on creativity in the adult industry. My friends are making really innovative, disruptive, creative porn. They can't get the traffic numbers and revenue they deserve because of ALO's dominance. That's a huge, huge problem.
Wow, that's didn't even know that, and that's no wonder we're in the situation we're in from a sex education perspective. Um, well, one thing, and I think this is obviously closely linked in terms of diversity, right? More diversity of voice, thought, and that's how I came to follow you. You're a vocal advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion in the advertising industry and beyond. Um, I'm curious, from your perspective, what can companies do to genuinely embrace diverse talent and perspective? You mentioned one, uh, getting rid of sexual harassment. Um, I think there's been a lot of checking the box exercises lately. I mean, to you, how do we make that? How do we bring this to the forefront in an era that we see a backlash?
No, um, it is as simple as I stated earlier, Mario, because the answer is not to talk about it, okay, because that's not doing anything and it hasn't done anything. The answer is very simply when you kick the sexists out, when you kick the racists out, when you kick the misogynists out, when you kick the homophobes out, when you kick the ableists out, when you kick the ageist out, what you're left with is diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's it. It's that simple.
Are there companies that you've worked with that are doing that are living those values in your opinion that we can look at as models?
I would sincerely hope so. And the reason I say that is because so I'm thinking of one company particularly in our industry, which I won't name, but I was very impressed because they reached out to me back, this is years ago, when they were just starting out. And they were very small, but the principals had very well-known careers, and they jumped ship from big companies and started their own. And they said to me that they wanted to start as they meant to go on, as in they wanted their company, the people within their company, to reflect the same demographic makeup of the United States of America. They wanted the same spread of diversity. It's 50% African American. In the US, they wanted 50% of their agency to be black, et cetera, et cetera. All the relative proportions, which I thought was a wonderful goal. And so they reached out to ask, how they could work with me to make that happen. And you know, this is what this is an example of my approach to this because back in my BBH days, our creative strategy was we don't sell, we make people want to buy. I don't sell diversity, equity, inclusion. I make people want to buy it. So I said to the company principals, and they're based outside of New York. So I said, I want you to fly me in to where you are, and I want you to tell your company that you've hired me in a completely different capacity. You've hired me to help with business development. And as part of familiarizing myself with the company, I am going to do 30-minute interviews with every single employee. And by the way, it was a very small startup agency, so I was able to do that within a day. And these will be completely confidential sessions where I will ask them to tell me about the agency, but I will be able to observe anything that may be holding, the ability to be diverse and equitable and inclusive back. So they did that. Flew me in, put me up. I interviewed virtually all of the employees. I think one person was away or something. And then, based on those interviews, I put together a series of guidelines for the company principals about what they needed to do to be sure that they were absolutely, diverse, equitable, and inclusive. Um, they were very pleased with that work, and in fact, they subsequently, sometime later, brought me in to talk to the company as a whole at one of their employee days about, the principles of this. And the reason I say, I hope they are, is that I haven't, obviously, I haven't worked with them in some time now. I don't know how they are delivering on that, but they certainly started in absolutely the right kind of way and built the right kind of foundation.
I love that. And so many quotable moments there. I don't sell, I make people want to buy. I mean, that's so true. I think, and so much of that starts from authenticity. Um, and so that's great. I mean, and this is a great segue into the next thing I want. We have a lot of founders, first time founders, entrepreneurs, especially from underrepresented backgrounds that listen to us. Obviously, you've worked closely with founders, entrepreneurs, especially those that want to challenge industry norms. Based on your experience, what key insights can you share with founders, especially those from underrepresented backgrounds who are looking to disrupt their categories and build ventures that reflect their values?
I'm going to say this very emphatically. Design your startup around a business model that means you never, ever, ever have to raise funding.
Hmm.
And I cannot say that vehemently enough because you are not going to be able to. I represent the triple whammy of unfundability. I'm female, I'm older, and I have a sex tech venture. Now, I actually represent the quadruple whammy of unfundability because I'm also a woman of color. I'm half Malaysian Chinese, but I'm white passing, so I don't consider that in my case one of the barriers that I face. I do face very specific barriers finding investors to make love not porn because my investors are totally out there, but they're impossible to find by the conventional means because they all have one thing in common. Your willingness to fund Make Love Not Porn is entirely a function of your personal sexual journey. It's a function of your personal lens on sex and sexuality that's been shaped by your own experience of it. And obviously, I have no way to research and target for that, especially because sex is the area where you cannot tell from the outside what anybody thinks on the inside. The people who look like they would totally get it don't. The people who look like complete prudes do. So I put what I'm doing out there all the time because I have to make synaptic connections happen that will attract those investors to me. Now that's a very specific issue, although again it involves be your own filter, So I do recommend that to founders generally. But you know only 1.7% of all venture capital last year went to female founders. Something like zero point 0 something percent went to black founders. Okay, I cannot say strongly enough to underrepresented founders, or as Arlen Hamilton likes to call us, underestimated founders. Design your startup around a business model that means you start making money from day one, and you will never ideally have to raise funding until you're so successful people are falling over themselves to want to fund you.
That's great advice. I mean, I think I don't know what it is about startup culture that just obsessed with raising money. Um, and yeah, it's
Yep, no, no. The white bro markers should not be your markers because
yeah,
because you will never be able to hit them in the way that the white bros can.
so true, so true. No, that's great advice. Almost up on our time, but I have a couple more questions. One thing, and I think we're living in a massive time of upheaval, right? AI, culturally, this last election in the U.S., socially, many of the things that we touched on here. Where do you see this all headed from a marketing perspective? I mean, I hate to make these predictions, but what do you see some of the trends coming up in the coming year? I mean, this upcoming year, I think is a critical year for us.
Well, first of all, Mario, I absolutely don't believe in trend watching to find the answer to that.
Mm.
My favorite quote of all time is Alan Kay, who said, "In order to predict the future, you have to invent it." I am all about inventing the future. Too many people think the future is something that happens without us, rolls us over in its wake, and I'm all about decide what you want the future to be and make it happen. And the great thing is that both within the marketing industry and everywhere, that opportunity is absolutely here precisely because of what's happening. Because it is only when things get as bad as they are currently, when everything breaks down, when things are a total shit show as they are, that is what allows new forms of resistance, new models, new ways of doing things to emerge in a way they never could have previously. I'm a great believer that out of adversity comes opportunity. And I encourage everyone to, absolutely look at the shit show and know it for the shit show it is, but then decide, what do I want the future to be? And what opportunity is there for me in the way that everything is broken down so appallingly that I can now do things I could not previously to make the future that I want to happen happen?
Yes, 100%. I have to, I've experienced that recently, specifically with AI. Um, I didn't want to deal with it as a business owner. I was like, I don't want to, not that I was against it, but I just felt like, I don't know, something new we had to contend with. But once I realized we had the opportunity to put our mark on it, to train AI to be more culturally sensitive to diverse respondents, that reinvigorated me, helped us build a new business model there that's reflective of us. So I really see the opportunity for underrepresented founders to utilize AI to build businesses, like you said, that don't need venture capital. Um, what's your view on AI? Are you engaging with that from your businesses that you're working in?
It's very easy for you and our listeners to find my views on AI. They are in an op ed I wrote for Fast Company in December of last year, which is titled Three Reasons Why the Future of AI Relies on Women. And I
Mm,
recommend everybody looks that up and reads it.
okay, awesome. So we're Fast Company, three reasons AI relies on, or the future of AI relies on women. Love it. Um, Cindy, thank you so much. Believe it or not, we're up on time. Incredible hearing your journey. Really excited for the crowdfunding campaign for Make Love Not Porn. What's the best way? So I know is it makelovenotporn.com is the
Yep,
website.
absolutely. I would love
Um,
our listeners to go to makelovenotporn.com, sign up and subscribe. Subscriptions start at $10 a month, very affordable. Consider becoming Make Love Not Porn stars. Our Make Love Porn stars are everyday people like you, and it's a nice way to make some bonus income. But also do go to wefunder.com/makelovenotporn, invest in our campaign. And you can find me, I'm at Cindy Gallop, at Make Love Not Porn on Instagram, Twitter, and you can absolutely find me on LinkedIn, which is my favorite social platform. And by the way, if you had told me 10 years ago that one day I'd say I'm all about LinkedIn, I would have laughed in your face. Today, I'm all about LinkedIn. LinkedIn makes shit happen. And I recommend everybody get as active on LinkedIn as possible.
Agreed. I shut down my X account this year and doubled down on LinkedIn. It's great, and that's how I found you, Cindy, which is fantastic. So please follow Cindy on LinkedIn. She's a great follow. Um, Thanks again, Cindy, and thank you again to our listeners.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks to everyone listening in. To get more multicultural insights, check us out at thinknow.com and follow us on social media. You can also subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform.